Kelly, I'm going to do an expose, and this may take several parts, but like many school parents around the nation, I have been persecuted by the government. I've been demonized, and actually, I'm on trial. The city of Tucson and the Vale Independent School District are trying to intimidate me. So, what is my response? Of course, I'm going to expose them. This is a story of mine that I'm sharing with the Epic Times. I just got off Alex Newman's show on Frank Speech, and I'm going to be sharing it far and wide. But I also want to, on my show, give you some of the details, because obviously on some of these shows I might have a few minutes. But here I'm going to take some time. I'm going to lay out what's happened here in our school district and what's happened now, and we're just going to go over this story. I've spent about a year being demonized after the mainstream media completely misrepresented an event that happened last September in a local grade school. And I've received death threats along with two other fathers, a lot of harassment, a lot of defamation. But would the media lie to you? I think you probably already know the answer to that. It turns out the accusations by the media are completely false. And we're going to go through this one point at a time. So I want to lay a little groundwork first. I want to go back in time to when the school parents started confronting the school boards. A lot of that started right here in southern Arizona in the Vale School District, when over 200 parents showed up to a meeting because they had not been listened to. Kids were committing suicide in our community, having mental health issues. A lot of these effects of the lockdowns that we're now seeing come out, even in mainstream media, people were experiencing that. In our own neighborhood, we had a young man commit suicide, and according to some of his friends, it was linked to some of these lockdown policies. So I'm going to go through some of those. I'm going to show you that parents and students did come forward en masse. And I had my first of two court days, September 15th, and the school district and the city tried to portray things as if, oh, we never heard from anybody. We were just trying to keep students safe. But I'm going to blow the lid off this, and Epic Times and others are going to help me with this. And we're going to expose, not only did they know, they ignored the parents. Not only did they ignore the parents, they demonized them and portrayed them as the villains for trying to protect their own children. So let's dig into this. I've got some slides I want to show you that I put together. And these are some articles from around that time, 2020 through 2022. And one of them here is the impact of COVID-19 lockdown on teens' mental health. And I want to pull out some of the key points. 1 in 3 adolescents, 31.9%, will meet the criteria for an anxiety disorder by the age of 18. So right there, some kids have had anxiety disorders. They've had autism. I heard a story about someone who had a teenage autistic son, and someone threatened to kill them because the son wouldn't wear a mask and couldn't. The mask caused a very big disturbance to the child. A new poll finds many teens show signs of anxiety and depression. And this has only elevated over the last couple of years because of the lockdown policies, because of quarantining, because creating a two-class society where the kids wearing masks are good and the kids not wearing masks are bad and are kept at home has been very damaging to mental health, especially in a time when kids are so concerned about their self-image and their social status. The restrictions of the pandemic have been felt across the board. For teenagers, restrictions have meant months of virtual learning, more time isolated from friends, and the canceling of important social activities like sports, school performances, graduations, and proms. Another article says, and this one was, let's see, Fox News, Uh, by the way, I have left and right leaning sources that I looked at. Government mandated COVID lockdown sparked severe health crisis among teens as teachers' unions pushed policy. Now, this is where it gets really evil and invidious. And I'm going to show you that school districts in our state received a whole lot of money. Our Little Vale School District received millions of dollars for what? To enforce these policies. So they had a vested interest to ignore the complaints of kids. But all of this data was in front of them, and parents came forward time after time after time. They shut down that big April 27th school board meeting, like I told you, but the parents kept coming back. And and really what happened at that meeting was the school board tried to shut down the meeting, and the board either hid or fled. It's the story that I heard. And somebody swore in a new board from some of the parents who were there. Now, I knew this wouldn't take. I knew they wouldn't just lay down. But this story went viral. It went on Bongino. Dinesh D'Souza picked it up. A whole lot of people picked it up and said, hey, this is the way you do it. So believe it or not, right here in Southern Arizona, the Vale School District, this was the linchpin for a lot of the massive school boards where parents went and complained and got up on the microphone. And I'm really proud of the parents and kids here. 2020 was an awful year for teen suicide. The results showed that adolescents accounted for a larger share of all suicides in 2020 than they did during the 5 previous years put together. NBC and other media reported, by the way, NBC, not Fox News. CDC reports a 51% increase in suicide attempts among young girls, and that was posted June 20th, 2021. So I was aware of this. I was writing and speaking about these articles. I was bringing people into the coffee shop that we owned at the time, giving them a voice, and I want to show you a video of that shortly of one of those meetings. COVID-19 and the rise of teenage suicide from the Baylor College of Medicine. During the COVID pandemic, no, get the time frame, during the COVID pandemic, I, along with most pediatricians, have seen an exponential rise in teenagers admitted to the hospital with suicidal thoughts and attempts. And these are things people brought in real time to this school board, to the administration. And what were they met with? Being ignored, being called crazy, being shut down and demonized. And we've seen where this attitude has led, where the so-called Department of Justice tried to designate school parents as extremists and domestic terrorists, and they're still beating that tired drum. The pandemic uniquely impacted adolescents. Through social isolation, constant uncertainty, stress, and fear have plagued them. So here is when we had Viva Coffee House, and sometime I'm going to tell you what happened there, because it's all tied together, believe me. I had posted, the repercussions of the hysteria-driven, politically tinged response to this virus have been beyond tragic. And notice the date, April 21, 2021. That was days before that big school board meeting and several months before the Mesquite incident. And it continues to have a devastating effect on our children. Children are harming themselves and committing suicide in record numbers out of desperation and despair from the isolation and loss of identity of failed anti-scientific policies. And I am a scientist, and I wrote for a medical journal. I was editor-in-chief, so I have some credibility here. Anti-scientific policies, including our school district's intractable clinging to the demonstrably dangerous practice of long-term masking and isolation with the innocent-sounding social distancing. High school students, middle school, grade school, how important are their social lives? And in my first day of trial on September 15th, a week or so ago, the prosecution focused on, well, could kids get a decent education online or not? They didn't even touch on the social isolation, the major factors in depression, anxiety, suicide. And believe me, students, kids from our district came forward. There was one young man, a high school student, who contacted me on Instagram and said, hey, I've prepared a speech for this April 27th school board meeting because one of my friends was the boy who took a dive off the Mica Mountain bleachers, where, by the way, the school board meets. And he said it was because of these policies. And guess what? He didn't get to speak at that meeting. He was shut down. Social connection, individuality, identity, and human touch are fundamental to mental and physical health, obviously. Denying humans and children in particular these things is a crime against humanity. And I stand behind that statement, particularly considering it is in response to a virus with an extremely low case mortality rate, especially in the younger age groups. Now, just prior to this time, like I said, I was working in the medical field, working under one of the nation's top doctors, who, by the way, is not an anti-vaxxer, not conservative. He's actually on the liberal side. But he had said from the beginning, this virus is going to be low mortality rate. It's going to be mostly dangerous to people with specific health conditions. But do you think people listened to that at that time? Unfortunately, fear took over, and fear damaged our children. CDC, teen suicide attempts surged during COVID lockdown. Okay, that's from the CDC. Why did our school district act as if we were crazy? Why did they treat us like hostile players? And I'll tell you something. This is John Carruth. He is the Vail School District school superintendent, and he knew about this. Here's an article with his picture in it. Vail has 2 youth deaths by suicides. Youth suicides up in Arizona, nearly 30% include Pima County. That's our county. And I said in response to this, here's some comments from my social media. I won't stop calling for an end to these damnable practices, nor will a whole lot of people. This is wrong. It is not rhetoric. It is reality. It is not numbers on a website ticker. It's our children's mental health. Vail School District, get your act together and stop contributing to child abuse and teen suicide. And I started out really nice with these people, trying to inform them, trying to let them know what was going on. But after being ignored for so long and watching how parents were treated, I started to ratchet up the rhetoric and get more firm and insistent about it. Here's a comment on social media. That is a beautifully well-written letter. I hope people who have the authority read it. I can't imagine how teachers witnessing this all day, every day, can look at this situation and say, yes, this is the very best service we can provide for our students, knowing not one child in Pima County has died from COVID. This is worth it. And here's the plain truth. The fact is, no child has died of COVID in Pima County. But just in our school district, as I understand it, and I need to verify this, during this time period, 6 kids committed suicide, and suicide was epidemic across the nation. And I'm not just talking about a small uptick. I'm talking about a direct link to the lockdown and quarantine strategies. Why do you think people were fighting so hard when their children were being destroyed? Here in the Vail School District, we have recently had 3 teen suicides. This is something I wrote at the time, linked to despair over these damnable practices, along with a murder-suicide. And this is happening everywhere in epidemic levels. That is the most important health crisis now, with the increase in suicide outstripping COVID-related deaths in some areas, including ours. And our school districts continue to tolerate the mental health crisis and suicides happening on their front steps, holding our children hostage as leverage for corrupt Pima County's goal of 75% forced vaccination. So Pima County, which, by the way, went rogue against the state and against the governor's orders, just decided they were going to be the authority in and of their own. And they set this arbitrary goal of 75% forced vaccinations. And it took our legislature and our governor to get rid of those vaccine mandates because people had concerns about an untested medication on their children, which I can tell you right now is not good for kids, is not for their benefit, is certainly not necessary because kids just don't die of COVID except in rare cases, usually where they have an underlying health condition. The response to this in our schools has been like killing a fly with a blowtorch. I mean, come on, talk about an overreaction. Now listen to this from that same article. The death of an 8th grade student by suicide in November shocked the Vail School District. And guess where that happened? That happened right outside our house in the desert, in the vacant lot near us. This is the kid that would pop into his old teacher's classroom during passing period and just say hello and get a big hug, said Vail spokeswoman Darcy Mentone. And I'm going to have some things to say about Darcy pretty soon. This was a kid that the principal knew super well and adored. You know, those kids, the happy, friendly kids. This is one of those kids. Vail had 2 students die from suicide this year, and it was up to that point. The other was a high school student who died in September. Pima County, listen to this, has seen a 67% increase in suicides this year among children ages 12 to 17, according to who? The Pima County Health Department, the same one uh, enforcing these, which became illegal mandates. And across the state, 43 children had died by suicide by mid November, compared to 38 for all of 2019, according to the Arizona Department of Health Services. The 8th grader in Vail, who had been a student in the district since kindergarten, had just begun attending in person classes a week after doing remote learning since the schools had closed. This was all there in front of the Vail School District. It was there in front of the school board. And I'm going to show you some videos that we also sent to the school board. Now, with teen suicide on the rise, Tucson educators struggle to prioritize mental health. Counselors skip student meetings to cover for staff who are sick, exposed to COVID. Now, again, the schools knew about this. Armies of counselors weren't going to solve this, because when kids are isolated, when they feel rejected by their peers, when they feel like, gee, I was quarantined and sent home because I can't wear a mask, that a counselor's not going to solve that. It's the policy. It's the policy that needs to be looked at. And unfortunately, our school district wasn't willing to take a frank look at that. And I'm going to expose why. It was because of money and pressure. Understanding coronavirus in America, loneliness impacts majority of young adults is elevated among all age groups. How do kids feel about being lonely at a time when they're just establishing who they are and their personalities? Now here, I know this slide's a little complicated, but these are some slides from that April 27th school board meeting. You can see there some of the parents who came in. Emotions flare after parents protest for Vail School District to lift mask mandates. And I talked to one of the parents who, by the way, her son went to Mesquite Elementary, and shortly prior to the September 2nd event, her son refused to leave the school. I believe he was like something like 3rd grade. And he said, I'm going to stand my ground. And several, probably about a dozen people from the community went and picketed the school legally. So flashback to September 15th of this year, where the prosecution of the school board, the school district, claimed that as if Mesquite Elementary didn't know anything about this. Well, they had a protest right outside their school, and they had a son sitting in that very same office where we fathers went to stand up for another child. And she said, and oh, the board's heard me multiple times. They know who I am for sure. I don't feel unheard. I feel ignored and labeled as crazy. There you have it right there. Arizona School Board ends meeting when parents protest mask mandate. I'm going to put up a video real quick. This is, by the way, a letter that a friend of mine who worked for the Border Patrol and unfortunately passed away had drafted for parents, saying, look, as per ARS 1-601, the liberty of the parents to direct the upbringing, education, healthcare, and mental health of their children is a fundamental right. Read through that. It's a state statute. It is the law. There's no caveat for a pandemic. There's no exception. The parents make the health decisions. And when is this more critical? When your children are put on suicide watch. And you're going to tell me some administration that's getting paid to enforce standards that are policies that are clearly failing, they're the ones that should be able to make that decision? You got to be kidding me. We do appreciate the Vail School District and anticipate that they will do right and leave the masking issue up to parents. So I was trying to be positive about this as much as I could. So I'm going to share a video of a freedom talk that we did at my coffee shop, where a young man and his family describe his experiences. And watch toward the end when we have a very special woman give her perspective on the whole situation. A lot of people. So I think we have a young man here that wants to speak, and we'll open up to anybody who wants to tell their story.
Hi guys, I'm Hunter Ridley. I was from Empire High School. I'm a sophomore there. I have 2 more years left, hopefully. I've been through many struggles. We've all had struggles in our lives, but this has come to a worldwide situation that we should not be even part of. Because do you think that this is for students? Absolutely not. Students should not be able to be forced to wear something over their face that's not even going to do anything for them. It's just going to hurt you more, and it's going to bring your life down. All this has been is a downward slope from what we've normally done, because we have fought the flu. It's the common flu, and we've all fought that. And what you do is go home and fight it yourself. You take Tylenol and fight it at home, and try not to do that to anyone else. So why is this different? This is nothing new that we have experienced. We have fought so many battles in our life that we should not be punished for other people's mistakes. And I felt personally damaged and depressed and out of my social life. I have just started to get a good social life. Started to go, and then I lost it automatically because of this stupid thing. I barely have one friend who is able to contact me, and I barely even get that. All I have is family members now. And we have fought through baseball, and we have thought through anything that we have possibly can do to not be able to wear it. We have done anything that we have possibly can, and we will still keep fighting until we win.
Thank you. That's so brave. And I want you to know we love you here. The community loves you. And
we're going to do whatever we can to
we
get
are.
this done.
And for what little it is, we want to give you a gift card and a t-shirt, just so you know you're a part of things. Did you want to continue and say more? Because your voice thunders more than any of us. Your voice is the one that was supposed to be heard last Tuesday, and they ignored you.
Yes, I've been through scouts, and I've fought through many laws, and I've had this one question. Why are we following policies over the law? The law has a bigger say-so than anything else, and we have been shut down because my principal, in quote, has said, "I do not care that you are wearing this. Go through a lawsuit." And he has said, "I do not care that I am breaking the law. Follow a lawsuit."
He said he doesn't
kicked
care
me out of the
he's
school.
breaking the law. He's going to do it
does not
anyway.
care.
And you're how old?
I literally went up to the
Well, you
school.
can come up here.
You can come up here. You need to speak up too, because this is what Tuesday was supposed to be about, you guys.
Exactly.
This is what Tuesday was supposed to be. And they turned their backs on all of these kids who were there, and the kids who couldn't be there, and the parents with them. Shame on you.
I walked up to the Empire High School front. There were 3 people there. One to check my temperature and walk in, but they said that I had to have a mask on, and I said no, I would not have a mask on. And they got Mr. Donaldson. He came out and talked to us, and he said that he did not care that he was breaking the law. We have a policy, go follow a lawsuit. And I was severely mad. I just wanted to walk in there and take school because I felt my education is more than a policy. A stupid policy to wear a stupid cloth over my face so I can have anxiety and lose a social life. Because students should not be able to go through this. This is wrong. You are hurting everyone. I don't care if your parents say that this is good for you. You know deep down inside you are wrong and they are wrong. You should fight.
Let me tell you something. No mother should ever have to put their child on suicide watch. I had to do that for this young man. Every night I went in and I went into his room, not to say just I love you, and I care about you, and I hope you make it to tomorrow. But to go, I'm afraid for you. That should not happen in this community. This should not happen in society in general. As our children's mental health is struggling and deteriorating, being behind a computer screen for 8 hours, a school day, not talking to their peers, not interacting and being able to walk up to their teacher if they have a question about their homework assignment. They are being dismissed, they're being outstressed, they're being treated like leopards. And they're not. They're healthy, developmental children that deserve a healthy education on campus, next to their peers. When I was growing up, when Columbine hit, I went to my peers and I went in and had a meeting with my peers and we discussed it. And no teacher was there. It was all peer support. Let me use that word again. Peer support. These teens need each other. They're our future. They're going to be making these policies down the line. They're going to be saying how they feel. And they need to be heard now. He went to a meeting, to the board meeting, and they just looked at him and mocked him. And he told his story, and they just dismissed him.
I want these kids to also know that not only should parents be fighting for this, this is also the rights for the kids to know that they're not alone, that this is our future and we should not be held like sheep. We are not meant to be herded. We are not meant to go into this communist society, okay?
And be experimented on. Our children are not guinea pigs, lab rats. At the expense of their mental health? How dare you? One death, suicide, is too many.
Too many.
And my son is valuable. My daughter is valuable. They matter. You want to talk about lives that matter? These kids' lives matter. And you act like they don't. And that's why I'm spitting angry.
You should be.
Because what did we make this country for? Just so we can be told what to do? Just to know what we have to wear? Know what we have to do? No, we made this country for freedom. This is wrong. We should not be in a communist society. This is completely wrong. I should not be told what to do. We fought for this country for freedom. So why has it changed now? Because you wanted something? Because you wanted money? What is that going to do for you?
No dollar sign is over my child's value. This is priceless. There's no price tag on this kid head. Do not put it there. I will not allow it. His life is priceless.
That's
You
right.
understand that?
Why should I have to fight for my education? Why should I have to fight just so I can learn something in school? School is very important to people. Even though you may not do well, even though you may not like it, you will have the struggle. And that is okay. It is teaching you of life. But to be put harder down, to be kicked while you're down in the hardest of school, just to know that you have a freaking covering over your face, that does absolutely nothing for you.
Thank you, son.
I can't breathe with these things on. It's frustrating.
I want to say something because there's someone very special here. It's Krista Reynolds, and Saturday she shared her experiences right here
Well, let's give
in this shop.
one more.
Let's give her a round of applause. But I would like this young man to be able to meet Krista because she did live through what you're talking about. And we're all here to support you.
How many kids do you think feel like you do?
I feel like every single kid in the freaking world feels like I do right now.
And somebody over here wanted to ask how you feel like, what you think your peers feel.
I literally talked to my peers about everything that they have done. They feel the exact same way. They feel scared because they don't know what to do, because their parents hadn't taught them right. These people who have bred you, they should know what to do because they have been through the exact same thing, if not worse. They should treat you better.
I would like to, Krista, would you mind coming over here by this young man? Because we have generations between these two, and I want this young man to meet Krista, who was a child in Nazi Germany, and then under the Soviets in Berlin. And Krista has told me that she has not been this scared since she was a child, and she understands how he feels. Did you want to say anything, Krista?
All I want to say, I've been there. I lived through the World War II, and I know how it started. Okay, I know how it started over there in Germany, and believe me, what I see right now is very scary, and we got to fight. And in Germany, the same thing happened. At first, the German people just did not realize what Hitler had in mind. And and he gradually pushed and pushed and pushed. But what I want to say, when he first when he first became a leader, he went ahead and did a lot of things for the Germans. Because at the time, people lost everything. They just got out of the depression. And now, but he had something in mind, something of evil. So then he eventually started, at first, like I say, he gave people jobs and everything, but then all of a sudden, he was starting making ammunition factories, and different things were built and so forth. And gradually, by the time the Germans realized what was going on, it was too late. And we all know what happened, So I'm telling you, we have to fight this because it's very, very scary. And I see some socialism starting here in our country. And this is a free country, and we want to keep it free.
Absolutely.
And this is actually my book. This is me, and I wrote this book about going to war. And
I think we should give a copy of this young man. We'll pay for it.
Give it. I want to give it to him. Yeah.
And Krista
Let me
can
sign
sign
it.
it.
Yes, I sign it.
And I want to give you this print by New York artist Scott Levito, and he's a patriotic artist. He's very famous, and I want you to hang it on your wall and remember who you are. So that was a very real event that we had, and I seem to recall it was either shortly before or shortly after the April 27th school board meeting. Unfortunately, Krista, who you see at the end there, has passed away, but she was very concerned about the state of the country, as many of us have been, and she recognized in what this young man was going through things that she went through as a child. And I sent this to the school district, absolutely no response. But I want to tell you that just getting to speak his mind like that, this young man, Hunter, went from being on suicide watch to finding his courage. I'm so proud of him, and I want to show you a little video of that. So he not only went to the Vail School District Board, he started going to other school districts to fight this tyranny and to fight for other kids. So let me just.
Hi.
Sorry if you can't hear this.
I'm here again. I shouldn't be here again. Why do I have to re-speak myself? That just tells me that you weren't listening the first time. So I'm gonna rebuild.
You may have to turn up your volume.
because you don't decide to listen. Are you listening? That's a question.
It says, are you listening?
Thank
That's
you.
a question.
I'm going to start off with students' mental health. Now, we feel depressed, sad, upset because we don't have social life or peer support.
We don't have social life or peer
You
support.
are trying to control us with a tool. Instead of adding counseling, why don't you just remove the tool or make it optional to use that tool?
You hear the number of people over there? All parents, supporters, and
Because
students.
counseling's not going to do anything for me, nor any of the other students, because we already have counselors. And if those counselors haven't talked to us, then they should be fired. And that's wrong. They should hear the students out and try to get it to you. Now, peer support is very important, because if we don't have that, we're depressed and suicides happen. And that is wrong. Do you like death? Do you like dying? Or do you like having kids die? Because that is what you're doing, and that is wrong. And you already know that. And yet you still decide to do it. I don't know why you still decide to do it. That's your choice. Now, I say that policy is not over law. Law states that we and our parents have a choice.
Now, I agree with this young man. He said policy does not trump law. And listen closely. And, you know, the prosecution on September 15th prefaced their whole case by saying, well, you know, Kelly's going to cite the ARS 1-601 and 602, the Parental Bill of Rights, as if they could dismiss it. That is an ironclad law, but there are others that came into play.
To do what we want in our education. So why are we having a policy trump that law? That law is very important and it is set in stone, in paper. So why is a policy that you made up in 1 year controlling everything?
Because
That
of
is
money.
wrong. This is why we are trying to kick you out, so we have someone to actually listen to us.
Now, this is why the school district and the city would like to take me down, because I provided a place and a voice for these people. And you can see the difference in this young man, what having a voice did for him. And they know that they broke the law. I'll tell you, the Parental Bill of Rights isn't just fluff. It was designed for just this purpose. When the state thinks they know better than the parents and they're implementing something that parents feel and can see and observe that is harmful for their kids. And if they can't make those decisions for their own kids, what are we here for? What's this country about? What did people die and sacrifice for to build this country? If you can't exercise the fundamental, natural, God-given right to make the decisions for your children, and don't tell me all these kids can stay home and get online learning and be quarantined. Pardon my language, but bullshit. That's the crux of the problem, that they've been isolated, that their lives were taken away. They missed proms and football games and science clubs and all sorts of things. So don't even try to yank my chain on that one. I'm going to share another video here of another young man speaking out. So along with Hunter, he had some friends join him. And this is Mateo, I believe.
Matthias, whenever you're ready. Speak into the microphone, please.
Mateo's going to get into detail as to why it's really, really difficult for him to wear a mask to school every day.
I would like to address the mask requirements that our schools are giving us. It's been proven scientifically that masks do not work, and many of our students cannot breathe in the masks. Many students are mentally challenged, and they panic when they wear one, and sometimes they even slobber, and which causes the mask to mold, and this can cause many diseases from that, like strep throat.
Look at this young man. He did his research, and he mentioned kids with disabilities and mental issues. And I had a lot of people come to me and talk about that, both for their kids and for themselves, including people who had been sexually abused, who couldn't stand to have something on their face. And the treatment they received for walking around without a mask, I'm gonna share some of that hopefully soon.
Personally, I have chronic acne and I have to wear medication on my face. And when I wear a mask, the medication tends to like melt and it runs into my nose and mouth. And I've tried to talk to teachers about me not wearing one, and they just tell me it's policy and I have to wear one no matter what. I think it's kind of ridiculous that even for some people who cannot wear a mask, we are required to. The virus can also just enter through our eyes. It's not just through our mouth and nose. The virus is not. Young children are not susceptible to the virus as much as adults, so why should we be wearing one? And to a point, is it almost child abuse for young children to be wearing a mask?
Again, listen to the size of that crowd.
Who are the teachers to be telling me to put on the mask? I should be able to choose whether I want to put one on or not. And I think many people feel this way. And I'm a student, I have a voice, I'm the one going to class, I'm the one going through all this. I should be able to decide whether I put on the mask or not.
There's one of the moms who came to speak several times. Now, it's called bodily autonomy and personal sovereignty, and it's something that our country was built upon. Now, I want you to think back to that freedom talk we had with the young man who was put on suicide watch. And what you're seeing with me there is my true personality. I care very much about people. I try to be a peacemaker. I'm a gentle man. But when you go after my family, when you go after my community, when you start doing things that are blatantly evil, then you're going to see my masculinity come out. You're going to see my maleness come out. And that's something that as fathers and men, we have a responsibility to do. We were given that nature for a reason, because we're protectors. And when parents are ignored and kids are dying and suffering, and the administration doesn't want to do anything about it when they're literally breaking the law, what are we supposed to do? How can you, in good conscience, as a responsible human being and a citizen, watch this going on and not step forward? And the district has made a big deal in saying, oh, Kelly doesn't even have kids in the school district. Well, I did, 5 kids. My oldest son graduated from one of the high schools. I've had kids in middle school, grade school here. But after they closed the schools, we didn't put them back. Why? You think we want to put them in this kind of environment? So that's really a moot point. That's a really dumb point. Besides the fact that you are your brother's keeper. You stand up for people. We should not be this society where we sit around filming people getting robbed and hurt and not do anything. So I reject that point out of hand. I want to share another video with you because Mateo talked about child abuse, and some of you have probably seen this online, but I want you to see this.
No, you gotta wear it on, honey. No, you gotta keep it on. Put your mask on. There you go. Keep it right there. Yay, Mason! Yay! Keep it on, Mason. Look, we're gonna keep it right here. Look. Oh, peekaboo, I see you. Keep your mask on. Put your mask back on. What are you looking at? Come on, keep it on your face. You gotta keep it on your face so we go outside. There you go.
That's heartbreaking, and I've maintained for a long time that forced masking is child abuse. And I've gotten some responses online saying, oh, hey, and typically from these lefty kids that unfortunately have been brainwashed. Oh, I went through real abuse. How dare you compare this with real abuse? Well, you know what? I had kids and adults come to me who had also been abused, for whom a mask was a sign of oppression because they'd had a hand held over their mouths when they were abused. You know, where's the heart in our society when we accept money and stubbornly implement something that is demonstrably, obviously harming our children? Why don't we listen to our children's voices? Why do we demonize parents for watching out for their kids' best interests? Now let's assume the parents were totally wrong and the masks are the greatest thing ever. They weren't. But still, you'd have to compare that to suicide and say, hey, look, we need to sit down as a community and figure this out. The way that John Carruth and his staff and the school board treated parents was to champion what they were doing, to discount the parents who had issues, demonize them, and marginalize them. This is not how you run a community. And John Carruth needs to come clean on this. And the city and the school board need to drop their stupid cases against these three fathers, because literally, and I'm going to go into this, where it's down to things like, well, when you came in the office to support this father, you didn't sign the sign-in sheet. Really? Really? Now I'm going to show you a quick video. It's kind of grainy. I apologize, but it's a little Instagram live inside the April 27th school board meeting, which supposedly was violent and hostile and scary. Let's take a look.
The thing is, if we don't get to speak and they don't hear us, what? I mean, is it more important for us to speak or to not wear a mask right now? You know what I'm saying?
I think it's kind of like a regular sword. No, you do want to speak, so you're willing to speaking, get your voice heard. But at the same time, they're asking you to do exactly what you're protesting against.
I know. I totally.
It's those hostile extremist terrorists. They're standing and talking. How dare they?
I think the whole point is
People laughing? Oh my goodness.
come on, show your face. It's below your nose right now. Right there.
So you had a situation where parents were coming to protest the masking policies, and they were told you have to wear masks to come in. You know, there were other alternatives like distancing and things like that. But obviously, people who are coming to protest forced masking and mask mandates are not going to want to wear a mask. They even offered to go into a separate room. What did the school district do? They shut it down. They shut it down. They treated these parents like they were an unruly, violent mob. So I'm going to show you a Pima County Sheriff's Department report from that day. And I have to give kudos to our Sheriff's Department. The way they handled this was so professional. They didn't take sides. They just ensured peace. But I want to, speaking of Darcy Mentone, I got the police report, the sheriff's report on this incident. And Darcy Mentone had some very interesting comments that I think reveal a bias toward me as someone who's tried to stand up for people and help them. All right, so on 4/27/21, I responded to an unwanted person call at the Vale Unified School District Administration Building. First of all, that unwanted person was supposedly me. I didn't even speak at the meeting. That's right, I didn't speak. I wasn't in the room when somebody decided to swear in a new board. I simply went to stand up for people and say, hey, they have a right to speak. But mind you, this was before I even got to the meeting. This is what the officer was told. Call text indicated that approximately 75 people are outside protesting. Okay, that was in the early stages. It swelled to about, I'd say, 200. The reportee is not letting them in since they are refusing to wear a mask. That's Darcy and the school administration. Refusing to let them in because they won't wear a mask. What about accommodations? What about people who want to come in who can't medically tolerate a mask? An additional caller said the board meeting is getting out of hand and 60 to 75 people were in attendance. Look, I was there. It wasn't getting out of hand. And people didn't get angry until they were denied a voice which they had a right to express. Subject pushed through to get in and they're not wearing masks. Well, you know what? I was, if not the first person in, one of the first people in. And there's this picture of me I saw the photographer there. I think it was from Arizona Daily Star. And by the way, how did the media know to show up? He took an opportune picture when I was saying excuse me and going around the door checker, and I had politely declined to wear a mask, but supposedly we pushed through. That's not true at all. And again, this was a call to the sheriff's department before they got there. The reportee advised they are trying to hold a board meeting. One of the protesters said, "It's going to get worse for the district unless you let us speak." Well, I didn't hear that, but maybe somebody did say that. But yeah, I mean, if you refuse to let your constituents speak, you're going to be held accountable. Sergeant C. Kennedy, number 6539, and I arrived to the incident location, finding that Deputy SP Gallagher, number 1389, and Deputy Lieutenant Tominello, number 6128, were already on the scene. There was a large crowd standing outside of a stairwell to the entrance of the building. Hey guys, I want to take a quick break to tell you about Freedom Talk Coffee. This is some amazingly good coffee, and I'm a little biased because Andrea roasts each batch lovingly for you, and you're going to know that our coffee doesn't go to fund woke agendas. You're actually helping support the work that we do with Freedom Talk to restore American values on the foundation of natural rights, to fight for your freedom, to restore our country. So we really appreciate if you subscribe monthly, annually, or even make a one-time purchase. What did you put in this coffee? Coffee plus. Yes, they were standing outside because they weren't letting them in. The people who pay their salaries, by the way. When I arrived, I saw that many persons had signs, and the crowd was now approximately 100 people. Okay, so see, it was swelling, and it got up to about 200. All the individuals were not wearing masks and were chanting together, "Let our children breathe." Oh my goodness. What a violent chant that was. Let our children breathe. Give me a break. I was advised later that the board meeting was for the parents to voice their opinions about the children not having to wear masks at school. Did they get to speak? Did the parents get to enter? I think you know the answer to that. As Sergeant Kennedy and I attempted to make our way in, I saw a female wearing a name tag who appeared to be in control of the meeting. I asked to speak with her, and she identified herself as Darcy Mentone and advised me that she had asked a woman by the name of Stacy to call on her behalf. She said that when the first arriving deputies got there, she was explaining that the male from Viva Coffee Shop, who did not have children enrolled in the Vale District, was only there to get a bigger following, an attempt to embarrass the school board. Really? I was there just to get my social media numbers up, don't you know? And I wanted to embarrass the school because that's what I do. That's what I do for a hobby. I want to embarrass. You know what? I was a school teacher. I was a school administrator. What an asinine statement. She asked the deputies who first arrived to not arrest anyone, as that is what the Viva coffee shop owner was wanting. Oh, really? Yeah, I wanted them to arrest people. Yeah. Come on. She said that the issue was that all persons who were in attendance at the meeting were going to have to wear masks, and they did not want to, as the mask was the topic that was going to be covered with the school board and the parents. Duh. She then advised all persons who would not wear a mask to leave and said they were trespassing at that point, although she reiterated again that she did not want anyone arrested. Okay, we have something called the First Amendment that trumps a policy. At this time, other deputies and I were attempting to keep the peace and were standing by the scene as scene security. And I thought they did a great job. And by the way, I talked to a group of officers and they were very sympathetic to the parents. Now, listen to this. No persons were getting violent, although they were verbally confrontational with many of the other members of the board and would not leave the building after being asked. The meeting was then canceled and persons still would not leave. Now, I'm going to read this again. And I'm going to put this in the context of what happened at Mesquite Elementary because it's the exact same thing. And it's the exact same thing that the prosecution had to admit in court for the Mesquite incident. No persons were getting violent, although they were verbally confrontational with many of the other members of the board, with members of staff in this case, and would not leave the building after being asked. We didn't leave because we were waiting for answers and we were consulting And I'll get into that later. You'll see that. By the way, I have the whole 1 hour long video of that event, and you'll see nothing happened. A compromise was then reached, having one student and one parent being accompanied into the presence of the board, although some of the members had left. As has happened, multiple adults and children entered part of the building where we were currently standing. Oh, so you dirty non-maskers, you can send one adult and one child, and we'll wave the royal scepter. I escorted each student and parent into the room where they had approximately 3 minutes to speak to the board with the speeches they had already written. So that whole crowd of over 200 people got a combined total of 6 minutes. A short time later, as the crowd started to leave and become more compliant, I was instructed by Sergeant Kennedy to leave and that he would finish up the remainder of the call. Okay, so that's the goal, that you want a compliant society? You want people to be compliant when their kids are being put on suicide watch, when kids in your neighborhood are killing themselves. You want compliance. Now, I don't fault the officers. Again, I thought they were very professional. I'm going to stop this episode pretty quickly here, but I want to tell you, we've kind of covered some of the background of the parents' frustrations and what led up to the Mesquite incident. But I'm going to share one more video here. This is another freedom talk that we did with a mother and her boy talking about the effects of masks on her child. And we have any number of these stories, by the way.
Since I was 6, I've suffered from migraines, but ever since I've been wearing a mask, it started to happen more often. And there's other things that like make it stop, but the mask is the easier thing to start it.
I speak for my son Jack here, who suffers from migraines. All I want as a parent is the choice for them to mask or not to mask. He has about 11 trips to the nurse's office for Tylenol ever since he went back to school. I had them out and I was homeschooling for a while until my children actually begged me to go back to school. I don't know if I'm that horrible of a homeschooler, but they actually wanted to go back, and they were excited to be around their friends. But now we're having to fight with the school board, and I want the board to listen to me. I've been putting posters up. I've been active on social media. I can't get anybody to go, but I'm hoping that this movement will make its way to South Tucson. I get a lot of flack too, coming from different parents. They think that I want my children dead, I don't care about my children, they should wear a mask regardless. And it's terrible what other parents do to shame you whenever all I want is a choice. And I don't mind what their choice is for their child, but I want my own choice for my own children.
Now, I just have to shake my head because at court a couple weeks ago, the school district representatives, the Mesquite Elementary employees lied. They acted as if everyone was just hunky-dory with the quarantines and the masking. Nobody had a problem. They weren't aware of anything. And look at how the community was trying to communicate. They're spinning a false narrative, and they're going after me because I helped give people a platform, because I stood up for people. And what does it matter if I actively have kids in school or not? Oskar Schindler wasn't a Jew. Sophie Scholl was a German. Albert Schweitzer served people in Africa to his own detriment and health. He wasn't African. Dietrich Bonhoeffer was a German, and he was executed by the Nazis for standing up for people that he didn't even know. What is our society becoming? So in my next episode, I'm going to start to share what really happened at Mesquite Elementary. It's not anything like what the mainstream media portrayed. And I can prove it because guess what? I have every second of video. So I'm going to show that to you soon. But first, let me share a little preview here. In this video, you're going to hear the Honorable Judge Antonio Riojas rule on the protective orders filed against one of the parents. He's going to give his opinion. He's going to dismiss the protective orders, and you're going to hear, because he watched the entire video, what he thought of it. Now, this isn't the be-all end-all trial. Each of the three fathers still has trials pending, and I'm in the middle of mine. But listen to what this judge says.
One, defendant never raised his voice. I listened to the tape, and a couple of things I noticed. One, defendant never raised his voice. I listened to the whole tape. He never stood up, which I found very significant, because you're right. His size would be intimidating if he stood up and got in your face, but he didn't. He sat down the whole time. That was one thing I was looking for, is what steps he did. I mean, what he did is he disagreed with you. That's not disorderly conduct. That's not rude. That's not threatening. You guys don't get to define how people disagree with you. School districts don't have that right. The citizens have that right. I'm dismissing your order.
There you go. There you have it. We'll see you next time.